After watching my grandkids every day for free, I asked my daughter-in-law if I could take a week off to rest. She slammed her coffee down and said, "You're lucky we let you see them at all, you mooch." Then she told my son, and he said, "If you're not useful, you're not family." The locks were changed the next morning. It all started with a cough. Not the kind you get from too many cigarettes or a dusty attic, but the deep, chest-rattling kind that comes from the flu. I'd been fighting it for days, hoping it would pass. But that morning, I just couldn't do it anymore. My head was pounding, my body ached, and for the first time in 2 years, I asked for a break. My name is John. I'm 67 years old. I live in a quiet corner of Springfield, Illinois, in the same farmhouse I grew up in. And for the past 2 years, I've been the unofficial daycare for my two grandkids, Tyler and Emma. Every weekday, like clockwork, I drive into town to pick them up at 7:15. Mike, my son, and his wife Casey would already be halfway out the door when I arrived. It started simple, just until Emma starts kindergarten, Casey had said. But that came and went, and I was still there. Every day. No pay, no thanks. Just diapers, bottles, nap schedules, and the occasional, "You're a lifesaver, Dad." The thing is, I didn't mind. I loved those kids. Tyler, with his wild curls and Lego obsession. Emma, always glued to my side, scribbling crayon masterpieces and calling me her bestest grandpa. They gave my retirement a purpose, and I gave them stability while their parents chased their jobs and lives. But when the flu hit me like a freight train, I sent Casey a text, simple and polite. "Hey Casey, feeling rough. Might need the rest of the week off. Sorry for the short notice." The reply came within minutes. "Seriously? You can't just bail on us like this, John. Some of us have real responsibilities." I sat there staring at my phone, blinking like maybe I read it wrong. My thumb hovered over the screen, trying to find a way to answer without blowing up. But then another text came in. "Honestly, you've had a pretty good ride. Maybe it's time you stopped freeloading and let us handle things like adults." Freeloading? I was stunned. I thought maybe she was having a bad day, lashing out. But I needed to hear it straight from them, so I called Mike. "Hey, Dad," he said, distracted. I didn't even get a chance to say much. I just asked if Casey really meant what she said. He sighed. "Look, Dad, Casey's under a lot of pressure, and so am I. We're trying to manage everything, and if you can't be reliable, maybe it's time to step back." "Step back? From what? Being their unpaid babysitter?" "Mike," I said, "I've been doing this 5 days a week for over 2 years. I've given up fishing. I've burned through my savings on gas and snacks and whatever those kids needed." "If you're not useful," he interrupted, "then what are we doing here?" Silence. That line hit me like a slap. That night, I barely slept. I kept seeing Tyler's goofy grin, Emma's tiny hand in mine. It felt like someone had pulled the rug out from under everything I had built. I wasn't asking for much, just a few days to recover. The next morning, I drove out to their house anyway. Call it habit. I still had their spare key, and I thought maybe, just maybe, we could talk this out face to face. But when I slid the key into the lock, it didn't turn. I tried again, and again. Then I noticed the shine of a brand new lock on the door. They'd changed it. No note, no message, nothing. I stood on that porch for a long time, wind cutting through my coat, trying to make sense of it. I wasn't just shut out of their house, I was shut out of their lives. Burned bridges don't always go up in flames. Sometimes, they just quietly vanish while you're looking the other way. And that morning, standing on that cold concrete step with a worn-out key in my hand, I realized they hadn't just locked the door. They'd locked me out of my own family. The first day I stayed home felt like I was playing hooky from a job that never had a time card. I kept glancing at the clock, thinking, Tyler should be finishing his waffles right about now. Emma's probably halfway through her morning tantrum. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. I poured a cup of coffee and sat in the kitchen, staring out at the frost-covered field beyond the barn. It was a clear January morning, the kind where the air stings your nose and the sun tricks you into thinking it's warmer than it is. Back when I was still working construction, I used to love mornings like this, cold but honest. I miss that, the honesty. Things either stood or they didn't. You build a thing right, it stayed put. No guessing where you stood, not like with family. I opened the mail out of habit, mostly junk. A gas bill I barely owed anything on, an old catalog I never asked for. Then something small fluttered out from between the pile, crayon scribbles on a torn sheet of printer paper. I stared at it like it was a piece of gold. It was a drawing I didn't even remember getting. Me and the kids at the park. Emma had drawn my beard way too big, and Tyler's stick figure was holding what I could only assume was a soccer ball or a pizza. Above us, in purple crayon, she had written, "Grandpa's the best." I sat down hard in my chair. My hands trembled a little. I couldn't remember the last time I cried, but right then, I had to put the drawing down and cover my face. I wasn't just mourning the kids. I was mourning the version of myself that still believed I mattered to my own son. After a while, I stood up, grabbed an old shoebox from the hall closet, and started filling it, not with memories, but with evidence. The text messages from Casey, the thank you notes from the kids' teachers, screenshots of our morning routines that I used to text Mike when he traveled, Tyler's allergy meds taken, Emma napped at 1:10, lunch was PB&J again, she won't eat anything else. I printed out gas receipts, grocery lists, pictures of Tyler napping on my lap, Emma clinging to my leg in the backyard. They weren't just memories. They were proof that I wasn't some useless old man playing grandpa for fun. I had raised those kids, maybe not the first time, but certainly the second. I didn't even realize how angry I was until I got to my bank statements. Thousands of dollars spent over the past 2 years. Diapers, school clothes, birthday gifts, emergency runs to Walgreens for cough medicine, all from my retirement checks. I dipped into the little money I had left without blinking, and now I was being treated like a burden? No. That night, I found a family lawyer's number in the phone book. Not one of those slick TV guys with the gold watches, but a woman named Valerie who had a small office above the bakery downtown. She picked up on the second ring. Valerie Benson, she said. Her voice was calm but sharp, like she didn't have time for nonsense. I gave her the short version, grandkids, full-time care, got tossed aside. She asked a few questions. Had I ever been paid? No. Any formal agreement? Just trust. When I told her about the texts and the receipts, she paused. Mr. Mathers, there might be a path here. Illinois has visitation statutes for grandparents, especially if there's evidence of a significant caregiving role. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe for her to tell me I had no chance. Maybe for her to say, well, that's just how it goes sometimes. Instead, she said, come in Monday. Bring everything. When I hung up the phone, I sat there in the silence for a long while. Then I looked at that crayon drawing again. Grandpa's the best. I wasn't fighting to prove a point anymore. I was fighting for the right to see two little faces that thought I hung the moon. And come hell or high water, I was going to make sure they knew I hadn't walked away. I had been locked out, sure, but I hadn't given up, not even close. The first real break came from Jimmy, a guy I'd known since we were both laying concrete back in our 20s. We hadn't talked much in the past few years, life and all, but he still swung by my place now, and then when he needed a tool or just wanted to talk shop. He showed up on a Thursday with a six-pack and a story. Man, he said, leaning on the tailgate of my truck, I heard about what went down with Mike and Casey. Sorry to say, but I got something you need to hear. I didn't say anything, just cracked open a beer and let him talk. Remember my cousin Angela? Works over at the county clerk's office. He took a long swig. She says there's a red flag audit on some of those grant applications Casey submitted through her consulting firm. I raised an eyebrow. Red flag how? He looked around, like someone might be listening out in the cornfield. Forgery, he said low. They're looking into fake documentation, misreported income numbers, fake small business clients. Stuff that's supposed to qualify you for government assistance, but only if you lie about everything. I stared at him, not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. And Mike? I asked. Jimmy nodded. Word is he's been using company tools and parts from the warehouse to do under-the-table side jobs. Auto repair mostly. Didn't report it. Didn't clear it with his boss. Could be theft of company property if someone wants to push it. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, notepad out, writing everything down. Times, names, things I'd heard Mike say in passing. I remembered one time he bragged about pocketing cash from a brake job he did in our garage after work, saying it's not stealing if no one misses it. I never said anything back then. I figured, not my business. But now? Now it was. I gathered every crumb I could find. Social media posts. Old emails Casey had sent asking me to help her move numbers around for her taxes. At the time, I thought it was just a misunderstanding. Now I saw it for what it was. I didn't go to the police, not directly. I filled out anonymous reports. One to the county fraud division, another to Mike's company's HR hotline. Then I posted a thread in the local community forum under a burner account. Not to trash them, just the truth. Grandfather pushed out after raising kids full-time. Parents now suspected of fraud. I attached nothing personal. No names. But I didn't have to. Small towns connect dots faster than the internet ever could. By the end of the weekend, my post had hundreds of comments. People I didn't even know were chiming in. I remember seeing that old man with those kids every day at the library. He took them to story time every Friday. I thought he was their full-time caretaker. I'm a teacher at Lincoln Elementary. He picked those kids up every single day. And then someone dropped a bomb. Is this about Casey Martin? Because I work at the Department of Economic Development, and her file stinks. By Monday, things were moving fast. Mike got pulled into a closed-door meeting at work. Casey stopped posting online. Her Instagram, once flooded with motivational quotes and boss mom selfies, went dark. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. But I did feel relieved, like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling around in for years. A week later, I got a call from Valerie, my lawyer. We may not even need to push hard for visitation rights, she said. They're going to be too busy cleaning up their own mess to put up much of a fight. I was quiet for a moment. I didn't want it to go this far, I told her. She paused. Sometimes it has to. That night, I stood in my living room holding that old crayon drawing again. Grandpa's the best. I thought about how far Mike and Casey had fallen, how much I'd wanted to protect them, even when they didn't deserve it. But this wasn't about them anymore. It was about Tyler and Emma, and the fight had only just begun. Monday morning came heavy with nerves. I wore my cleanest flannel shirt, the one Emma always said made me look like a TV grandpa. Valerie met me outside the courthouse. She was holding a thick folder, calm as ever, her glasses perched low on her nose. "You ready for this?" she asked. "As I'll ever be," I said, adjusting the collar of my jacket. We were there to file for official visitation rights. Nothing fancy, nothing aggressive, just a request backed by stacks of evidence showing that I'd been more than just a babysitter. I'd been their third parent, and now I just wanted a legal way to see my grandkids again. Mike and Casey showed up 10 minutes late. Mike looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles, rumpled shirt, jaw clenched tight like he was holding back something sour. Casey looked the same as always, put together, smug, like she thought this was all beneath her. In the hallway before the hearing, Casey leaned over and muttered, "This is pathetic, John. You're embarrassing yourself." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. We sat before a family court judge in a small room that smelled like dust and worn-out carpet. The kind of room where big things happen in quiet ways. Valerie did most of the talking, walking the judge through everything I'd done. Picking the kids up daily, feeding them, paying for clothes, doctor visits, school supplies. She even showed him the crayon drawing. I hadn't wanted to include it, but Valerie insisted. Sometimes a picture speaks more than a spreadsheet. When the judge looked at it, his eyebrows lifted just a bit. I saw something soften in his face. Then it was Casey's turn. Her lawyer started by trying to paint me as unfit, unstable, too old, too emotional. Said the kids needed routine, and Casey didn't feel comfortable letting me around them without supervision. Casey even chimed in. "He's not a bad person, Your Honor," she said, fake sweet. "But he's overwhelmed. He kept saying he was tired. He even took pictures of the kids sleeping like it was some big deal." Valerie opened the folder again. "Let's take a look at some of the texts, Your Honor." From Mrs. Martin. She handed over printed screenshots, carefully arranged by date. "John, I don't know what we'd do without you. Can you please keep them overnight? I have an early meeting. You're the only one they trust. Please." The judge flipped through them slowly. No one spoke. Then Valerie added one last piece, a notarized statement from the kids' school secretary. She wrote how I was there every single day, rain or shine. How Tyler would cry if I was even 5 minutes late. How Emma once refused to go home unless I was the one picking her up. Mike looked away. The judge cleared his throat. "I've seen cases like this before," he said, "but rarely with this much documentation. Mr. Mathers," he looked at me directly, "it's clear these children have a deep, established bond with you. Denying them contact would not be in their best interest." I didn't breathe. "I'm granting weekend visitation every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., starting this week. Additional holiday time will be reviewed next quarter." I exhaled, and I swear I nearly cried right there. Casey's face twisted in that tight, angry way people make when they're smiling through their teeth. "This is ridiculous," she whispered, shoving her papers into her purse. Mike said nothing. He just followed her out, shoulders hunched, like a balloon that had finally lost its air. I walked out with Valerie beside me, still holding that crayon drawing in her hand. "You did good," she said. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The first visit was quiet. They dropped Tyler and Emma off 30 minutes late. No apology. The kids were confused, holding little backpacks that weren't even zipped up right. Tyler was wearing mismatched socks. Emma's coat didn't have buttons. But the second they saw me, they ran straight into my arms. "Grandpa," Emma shouted, hugging my legs like she used to. Tyler looked up at me. "Can we go to the park?" I swallowed hard. "You bet we can." That Saturday, we made grilled cheese sandwiches, built a pillow fort, and watched old cartoons until the sun dipped behind the trees. Emma fell asleep in my lap. Tyler curled up next to the dog on the rug. It wasn't just a visit. It was home again. I knew it wouldn't last forever. That Casey and Mike would keep trying to push me out. But for now, the law had given me something they couldn't take away. Time. And with these kids, that was everything. The first few visits were clumsy but sweet. The kids took a little time to settle back into the rhythm. Tyler kept asking, "Are we going back soon?" every hour or so, and Emma would glance nervously toward the window like she expected someone to snatch her back. But by the third weekend, something started to shift. Tyler brought me a drawing of our pillow fort. Emma climbed into my lap like she used to and whispered, "I miss this house." I felt like I could finally breathe again. Until the sabotage started. The first time, it seemed like an accident. They dropped the kids off almost an hour late. No warning, no apology. Just a quick handoff at the curb and a car speeding off like they were trying to get away before I noticed Emma didn't have her coat and Tyler was sniffling with no tissues, no jacket, no backpack. I texted Casey, "They're late and don't have what they need." All good. No reply. The next weekend, they dropped them off again, this time with no snacks, no inhaler for Tyler, and Emma's shoes 2 sizes too small. The kids were shivering when they walked through my door. That was when I started writing it all down. Each weekend, I took notes. Time of drop-off and pickup, what the kids had or didn't have with them. I took photos of Emma's bruised heel from those 2 small shoes. I documented the missed medications, the dirty clothes, the empty lunchboxes. I wasn't doing it to be petty. I was doing it because I saw what they were trying to do make me fail, make it look like I was the problem, that I couldn't handle them, that I was old and forgetful and unstable, like Casey liked to throw around. They didn't understand that I'd been through this before. I raised Mike, didn't I? I knew when something was off. I knew when a kid was too quiet, when a laugh was forced, when a bruise didn't match the story, and I was starting to see the cracks. Tyler clung to me longer each visit. Emma didn't want to go back. One Saturday afternoon, I was helping them into their jackets when Tyler said something that made my chest hurt. "Daddy's been sleeping on the couch. He says Mommy yells too much." I froze. How long's that been happening? Bud. He shrugged. "I dunno. A while. Mommy said he's working late, but he's always home, just in the other room." The next weekend, Casey dropped the kids off alone. Her eyes were puffy, and she didn't speak. Just shoved the diaper bag into my arms and left. When I peeked inside, it was empty. No diapers, no wipes, no change of clothes. Just a crumpled granola bar and one mismatched sock. I sighed and walked the kids inside, putting on a smile. But in the back of my mind, I was already writing the next note for the file. Things got worse from there. The week after that, I overheard Emma humming in the hallway. I didn't recognize the tune, so I asked her. "It's Mommy's cry song," she said. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" She listens to it when she's sad, really loud. Sometimes she yells too. Emma's voice was so soft I had to lean in to hear it. Sometimes she yells at Daddy. Sometimes she yells at the wall. That night, I stared at my visitation log. The pattern was clear: missed essentials, delayed drop-offs, shorter visits. And the kids, they were carrying more than just backpacks when they came over. They were carrying tension, confusion, fear they didn't know how to name. I wasn't just fighting for more time anymore. I was fighting for their safety. And while Casey and Mike were busy tearing each other down in silence, I was documenting every second, every missed item, every bruise, every odd sentence that made my stomach twist, because I had a feeling the next storm wasn't far behind. And this time, I wasn't going to be caught off guard. Let them keep trying to shut me out. They didn't realize something important. They weren't the only ones keeping track. It came to a head faster than I expected. A letter arrived by certified mail. I knew what it was the moment I saw the return address, family court again. I peeled the envelope open slow, hands steady, breath not so much. Mike was suing for full custody, and not just of Tyler and Emma. He was filing to terminate my visitation rights entirely. The paperwork said I was interfering, emotionally manipulating the children, and, my favorite part, a destabilizing influence due to unresolved anger and mental health concerns. I sat at the kitchen table for a long while, rereading the same sentence. A destabilizing influence. This from the same man who used to drop his kids off in pajamas and leave me a post-it note that said, "Good luck, Dad." I called Valerie, my lawyer. "They're escalating," I said. She sighed. "I figured they might. But don't worry. We've got records. We've got reports. Let them bring it." We filed a response the next day. Included everything. My visitation log, photos, receipts, even statements from Tyler's school therapist, who noted how much calmer he was after weekends at my house. Valerie even pulled an affidavit from the pediatrician, confirming I'd brought the kids in for routine care more often than either parent had in the last year. But the shock came 2 weeks later. It was Casey. She called me. I let it go to voicemail, of course. She left 3 messages, none of which I returned. On the 4th day, she showed up at my front door. I opened it halfway, arms crossed. She looked thinner than usual, makeup smudged, hair tied back like she'd given up trying. I need your help, she said flatly. That took me a second. With what? Mike, she said, eyes flashing. He's trying to take the kids from me. He's telling the court I'm unstable, that I don't keep a safe home. I raised an eyebrow. Funny, he said the same thing about me. Her shoulders slumped. I know. I was wrong, okay? About everything. I let the silence stretch. He's trying to paint me as crazy, she went on. He's got some lawyer feeding him lines, and he's using every fight we ever had as proof that I'm unfit. She looked me in the eye then, and for the first time in years, there was no smugness, no superiority, just panic, raw and real. I need you to testify, she said, to say I'm not what he says I am. After everything? I asked. I know, she said quietly, but the kids, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for them. I closed the door without answering. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about Tyler's little voice asking why Daddy was yelling, about Emma humming her cry song. I didn't trust Casey. Not fully, but I trusted what I'd seen. Mike was spiraling, and he was willing to take everyone down with him. Court was held the following Friday. Same judge, same bench, new accusations. Mike took the stand first, looking polished, well-rehearsed. He told the court Casey was emotionally erratic, that I had been turning the kids against both of them, that the children needed stability, which, according to him, meant staying with him full-time, with no involvement from me or Casey. His lawyer presented old texts out of context, used pictures of me with a glass of wine at a barbecue as proof of poor judgment, and even claimed Emma had said she was scared of my house. I nearly laughed. When Valerie called me to the stand, I walked up slow, steady, every step like it was laid in stone. I looked at the judge, not Mike, not Casey, and I told the truth. I told them about the years of care, about how I took them in when no one else could, about the missed drop-offs, the lack of essentials, the way Tyler flinched when someone slammed a door. I showed the logs, the photos, the bruises, the letters from their teachers, the doctor's report about Emma's underweight diagnosis, the text from Casey begging me to take them during her work trip because I'm the only one they trust. Then, Valerie called her final witness. Casey. Mike's face went pale. She took the stand and, to everyone's shock, backed me up. Admitted to the judge she had pushed me out. Admitted she was wrong. Told them she didn't believe I was unfit. That the kids needed me. When she stepped down, Mike exploded. You're lying, he shouted, slamming a fist on the table. You're both trying to ruin me. The judge didn't even flinch. Order was restored. A week later, the ruling came in. The court denied Mike's request for sole custody. Casey retained shared custody, with mandated co-parenting counseling. And me? The judge granted me expanded visitation. Every weekend, some holidays, and overnight visits approved. When I picked up the kids that first Friday night after the ruling, Tyler asked, "Do we get to stay longer now?" I smiled, ruffling his hair. "You do, buddy. You sure do." Emma curled into the seat beside me, holding her stuffed bunny tight. "Does this mean you're not going away again?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered, "No, sweetie, I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it without doubt. The first sign that Mike wasn't done came 3 weeks after the court ruling. I was coming back from the grocery store, milk, cereal, a bag of cheese crackers that Emma loved, when I saw the mess. My mailbox was torn clean off its post, the wooden stake cracked like a matchstick. My porch light was shattered. Someone had keyed the word fraud into the driver's side door of my old Chevy. I knew who did it. I didn't call the police right away. Instead, I pulled the footage from the new security cameras I'd installed after the court hearing. Sure enough, around 1:14 a.m., there he was, Mike, put up, stumbling like he'd been drinking, spray paint can in hand. He wasn't even subtle about it. I burned the footage onto a USB stick and filed a police report the next morning. When I got home, I logged into my bank account, just to make sure nothing else was off. That's when I saw it. A new credit card opened in my name. Then another. Charges I didn't recognize, electronics, online purchases, food delivery services I'd never used. There were 3 in total, all maxed out, all recently opened. My gut turned cold. I called the bank immediately. After a long hold and a few transfers, the fraud rep confirmed what I feared. Looks like your personal info was used, full name, social security number, and your home address. But the IP address that opened these cards is tied to a residential network in, she paused, Springfield. I finished for her. Yes, sir. I hung up and stared at the table, jaw clenched. Mike had stolen from me. Again. But this time, it wasn't just petty sabotage. It was identity theft. I filed a second police report. Gave them everything: credit card statements, online logs, screenshots of suspicious charges. When the officer asked if I had any idea who did it, I didn't hesitate. "My son," I said. She blinked. "You're saying your son stole your identity?" "No," I corrected, voice like gravel. "I'm saying he tried to destroy me with it." The next day, I got a call from a guy I knew from back in my construction days, Ricky. He worked in a local compliance office now, tracking pandemic loan fraud. "Hey, John," he said, "you might want to hear this. Remember those small business relief programs from a couple years back?" I said, "Yeah, of course." "Well, we flagged a few applications recently. One of them was under Mike's name. He claimed he had a car repair business, said he had 6 employees, got a pretty hefty loan, over 50 grand. My eyebrows rose. "He doesn't own a shop." "I know," Ricky said. "That's why we're opening an investigation." I sat back in my chair, the pieces clicking together. Mike had tried to ruin me in every way he could: reputation, finances, even my sense of peace. But he hadn't counted on one thing. I kept receipts. The investigators looped me in as a witness. I sent them what I had: text messages, emails, screenshots of Mike bragging years ago about getting one over on the system. The case moved fast. Within 2 weeks, they had enough to file federal charges: wire fraud, identity theft, vandalism. He was arrested on a Wednesday morning. Casey called me that night. She didn't sound smug or defensive. She sounded exhausted. "I didn't know," she said. "I swear, I didn't know how deep it went." I didn't answer right away. "He's gone, John," she said after a long pause. "And I can't do this on my own. I thought I could, but I can't. The kids are confused. Tyler keeps asking why Daddy's not coming back." I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the half-drunk cup of coffee I'd reheated twice. "Do you still think I'm a destabilizing influence?" I asked quietly. She let out a shaky breath. "No," she said. "I think you're the only stable thing they've got." There it was. Not an apology, but the closest thing I'd ever get. We talked about the kids, how they were doing in school, Emma's new interest in painting, Tyler's trouble sleeping. And then she asked the big one. "If the court allowed it, would you take them?" I sat there, stunned. "What? Full custody? I mean, temporary. Maybe, but maybe longer." It wasn't just words. 2 weeks later, with Mike in custody and Casey voluntarily stepping back, we were back in court again. This time, not as enemies. Valerie stood by my side, presenting every ounce of evidence we had: my caretaking records, the visitation logs, the house inspection reports, even letters from Tyler and Emma's teachers saying they were thriving. The judge didn't need much convincing. He granted me full temporary custody, review in 6 months. But I knew what that meant. Unless something drastic happened, the kids were staying with me. When I picked them up that night, Tyler ran into my arms. Emma clutched a small stuffed bear, eyes wide. "You coming home with us?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Emma nodded slowly. "Forever." I knelt down beside her. "As long as you need, sweetheart." They walked into my farmhouse like it was the most natural thing in the world, dropping their bags in the hallway, kicking off their shoes, running to the kitchen like they'd never left. That night, I tucked them in. Tyler asked if we could go fishing this weekend. Emma wanted to help plant tomatoes in the spring. And me? I sat in my old recliner, staring at the crayon drawing still pinned to the fridge. Grandpa's the best. After everything, every betrayal, every insult, every slammed door, I finally understood something. They hadn't broken me. They'd made me stronger. Because sometimes, the only way to protect the people you love is to stop letting yourself be the one who gets burned. And this time, I didn't just fight back. I won.